and the IEBC. He's launched an attack that's quite scathing, and he says that CORD will pull out of future elections if the IEBC is involved because there is a belief that they have been working against him and against his interests, or the interests, should I say, of CORD. What's your response to that?
Well, I guess we are living in a democratic country, and every citizen has the freedom to exercise their rights the way they best, or the way they know best. An attack on the IEBC is not foreign to the country. Let me first say, if they say they don't have confidence in IEBC, the other day they say they don't have confidence in the judiciary. They say they don't have confidence in the legislature. What do they have confidence in? That's a question Kenyans will want to ask. And in any case, I think every citizen who believes in the rule of law and in constitutionalism must not only respect the Constitution, but must also, as a given, respect the institutions set up by the Constitution, and also respect the decisions made by those institutions. And if you have issues with any of the institutions set up by the Constitution, there are channels in the Constitution to challenge them. I guess, I don't know what kind of interpretation the CORD leadership is applying. I don't think one of them is boycotting elections. I don't think so. But if they wanted to boycott the elections, I think that's their decision.
What do you think it would mean for the country if they went ahead and said, look, we're not taking part in any elections under this body?
Well, I think there are people who want to see disorder, you know, and unfortunately, that's not how to build a country. I think Kenyans are a lot wiser after 2007, when we almost lost this country. I don't think anybody can persuade Kenyans anymore to walk the route of disorder.
You think we're beyond that? And
we are beyond that.
I'll be asking you about national healing in a short while. Before we go into Ruto the man, what are your thoughts on IEBC as a body and its performance?
Well, first and foremost, the current IEBC was set up by the last parliament. The names were recommended by the former president and the former prime minister. Processed through parliament. They did a good job. Hassan, the chair, was chair when he presided over the referendum. He did a wonderful, fabulous job.
And you were on the losing side of
absolutely, and we accepted, and we did accept the outcome of that result without blaming anybody. In the 2012 election, 2013 elections, understandably, there were challenges. And you are talking about 6 elections in one. You are talking about challenges that the CORD leadership were part of. Purchase of BVR machines that eventually did not work were presided over by people in CORD. I mean, so you cannot at this point in time blame an individual or any side of the divide. There were issues, but by and large, I must say, IEBC did the best under the circumstances.
This is something that clearly is going to be an ongoing issue, considering the statement made by Raila Odinga tonight, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. But let's move to Ruto the man now. And your journey has been phenomenal. You come from very humble beginnings. You are now the Deputy President of Kenya. When you sit back and look at that journey, what is it that touches you most? Is it still a kind of feeling of, how did I get here?
Well, I think, Julie, it takes divine intervention for some things to happen. In other words, it takes God. And secondly, it also shows that this is a country of opportunity. I have come across many people. I was today in Ruto. The member of parliament for Ruto was a nominated councillor in the last election. Today, she is an elected member of parliament. In this country, you don't have to have a famous father or a tall cousin. You don't have to come from community X or Y. I believe that every Kenyan, and that's why I want to tell every young person in Kenya that the limit to where you can get is your own resolve. What you decide to be in this country, you can become anything. If a man from a very humble background like me can make it all the way to Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, where you have 40 million Kenyans, anything is possible in Kenya. And every citizen should step out every morning knowing that we have a great nation and you can be anything and everything in Kenya.
That our land too is the land of opportunity.
Correct.
Just looking at your political journey, there was a pivotal moment when you made the move from Orange to the side of Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, that, and I think we have footage of that, hopefully in just a moment, some of that footage will be playing. Now that move, you know, they say there's always a moment where, you know, there's a straw that breaks the camel's back. What was the final straw for you that made you say, indeed, I am moving over and making this incredible shift? And when you made that shift, did you really believe you could win the election, or was it just a huge gamble?
Let me tell you, Junie, that when we had a candid discussion with my friend Uhuru Kenyatta, now the President of Kenya, and looking at where we were and the polarization that the country had gone through, and the turbulent 5 years we had under the coalition government, you know, with issues every morning and mistrust, and we said that we shouldn't perpetuate this. And we sat down with my friend Uhuru Kenyatta, and we agreed that win or lose, yeah, we want to work together. Bottom line being, we want to heal the rifts that have been in Kenya.
That was the genuine focus of this partnership?
That was really the bottom line, because it was a risk. I mean, many people told me, my friend, in fact, if I can quote Kiraitu Murungi, he told me, my friend, you have committed political suicide. How will you persuade your backyard to support a person from Mount Kenya? Uhuru Kenyatta was told the same thing. How are you going to work with William Ruto, the leader of those people from Rift Valley who are accused of all manner of things? But we said, if we succeed in bringing communities that, since the advent of multi-party politics, have quarreled and blood has been shed, property has been destroyed, if we can bring them together and we don't win the election, that is good enough for us to go home and say, we've done something for our motherland. But you see, the winning of this election for us was the icing on the cake. Because what was important to us is to repair the broken relationships of communities that had persisted for years, right? And that resulted to an extent in what happened in 2007. 2007, 2008 was a black spot for our country.
Let's talk about
and that. No price is too big to pay to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Incredibly bitter relations did exist. There are critics who look at the Ruto relationship and say, this, you know, the common factor here was ICC and a common interest and a common need. What would you say to that?
People can make judgment about our relationship. But Uhuru Kenyatta has been my friend even before the advent of ICC. If there is one person who stood behind Uhuru Kenyatta in 2002, credibly, it was myself. There was no ICC then, right? The ICC is a side issue, you know, and we have said that we will go through the motions with the ICC issues. We have absolutely no intention to do anything averse to what they want. We will comply. We are law-abiding. We respect the court, and we will subject ourselves to the court. And we are confident that finally we will be vindicated, that we didn't do the kind of weird things that we are accused of having committed in Kenya. But this country is not about ICC. This country is about issues, Madam Julie. It's about the poverty levels in our country. It's about hunger. It's about opportunity for jobs. It's about growing this economy. It's about security issues. It's about health. It's about matters that are dear to 40 million Kenyans. The ICC is an issue that concerns 3 of us, right? So I don't think a matter that concerns 3 of us can cloud over the issues that concerns 40 million Kenyans. And in the dispensation that we are going to preside over, Kenyans will see for themselves that we will focus on matters that are important to 40 million Kenyans. And by the way, we intend to transform this country.
Let's talk about the 40 million Kenyans and just go back to 2007, 2008 and the fact that so many victims suffered during that period. What are we trying, and I guess ICC was the whole, you know, don't be vague, go to The Hague, and you remember that. But what do you want to say to Kenyans about addressing these issues locally?
What do you mean by addressing these issues locally?
For very many victims who went through violence in 2007, 2008, who are still living next to neighbors who know very well. So in Rwanda, for instance, we had the Geshasha courts in place. What are we doing in Kenya to have local solutions to local problems?
I think if you focus and focus correctly, the whole country, Kenyans are an amazing group of people. In fact, I am sure when Bensouda came to Kenya, she was shocked because she found the victims telling her, by the way, madam, those fellows you're accusing out there, those are not the guys. And in any case, we think otherwise. For your information, many Kenyans have moved on, and Kenyans have built bridges, and Kenyans want to look at how do they transit their lives and how do they move on as citizens of one country. Many Kenyans have forgiven each other. Many Kenyans are looking for how do we transit. We've put money in the budget now to make sure that all the IDPs are resettled. Mm-hmm. We want everybody to go home, and we want everybody to participate in building this nation. That is the way we want to focus. We want to focus on the healing of the nation. The healing of the nation comes in so many ways, in expanding opportunity for every young person, in making sure that citizens have access to matters that will help them in their lives to move on, matters to deal with poverty, matters to deal with hunger, how to relate with citizens. And we are saying, and I said this afternoon in church, that the Jubilee government is going to serve every Kenyan, irrespective of whether they voted for us or whether they did not, irrespective of their community, religion, race, color, because we believe in one Kenya. And for your information, we have every intention in making sure that in 5 years, this country will be different.
Okay. Let's just take a look at some footage, and this is an image that we don't often see, which will be on our screen in a moment. Our director Carol is going to be rolling in just a moment. There we have it.
I haven't cried in years.
Na sijawahi lia kwa miaka mingi.
The only time I remember I cried was when I was still a baby.
Mara ya mwisho kukumbuka nilipolia nilipokuwa mtoto mdogo.
And it's only my mother who is here today who can attest to that.
Na ni mamangu tu aliye nami hapa siku ile ambaye anaweza shuhudia jambo hilo.
My wife always knew that I was a very strong man.
Mke wangu kila mara yeye hujua kwamba mimi ni mwanaume ambaye mwenye nguvu mno.
And she has never seen me cry.
Hajai niona nikilia.
But let me say this.
Lakini acha niseme hivi.
God,
Mungu,
in a very special way,
katika njia iliyo speciali mno,
has given us and the Jubilee Coalition
ametupa sisi na mrengo wa Jubilee
victory.
Ushindi.
Only saw a few moments of you sobbing there, but for those that recall, it's not something that we often see of our men here in Africa or of our leaders. So you were caught in a very passionate moment. What was going through your mind?
Well, you see, Julie, we won this election against the odds. Nobody believed that it was possible for communities that had fought for years to vote together. Nobody believed that people accused of all manner of crime would build sufficient confidence to win an election. And for me, right, coming from the background that I did, it was overwhelming, right? But that is a matter for another day. Maybe when finally I write a small book, maybe I will put it in there.
You'll put everything down, all the, because clearly a lot was
Yes.
going on there. Now, 100 days of Jubilee. We move now from Ruto, your
Correct.
experiences, the challenges,
Correct.
to 100 days of Jubilee. In your opinion, where have you succeeded as the Jubilee government, and where have you failed?
Why don't we start with the good news?
Yes, let's do.
Today, for example, our rugby team became the best in Africa. Our youth athletics team that was participating in competition in Ukraine are also the Africa champions. And a week ago, Victor Wanyama joined the English Premier, the Southampton side, becoming the first East African ever to join the English Premier. Isn't that good news?
It's all good news, but what did Jubilee have to do with that? So good news for Kenya. Good news for Kenya.
Yeah.
What about Jubilee's achievements?
By the way, we put in money to make sure that those teams went out there. But on a much more concrete note, I think in the 100 days that has been talked about, we've assembled government in accordance with the law. We have put in place all our cabinet secretaries, all our principal secretaries. We've passed the budget. In the budget, for example, we've put in 80% of what we want to do, right? We've put in money for the very first time in the history of Kenya to build a railway line. The railway line we are operating, Julie, is 2 centuries old. It was not built last century, it was built the century before.
A crying shame.
That railway, the wagons move at 20 kilometers an hour, maybe 25. We are putting in a railway line, standard gauge railway line, that's going to move at speeds of between 100 and 150 kilometers per hour. It will take hours to move cargo out of Mombasa to Nairobi and to our borders. That will do what has never happened in Kenya. We intend also to make sure that the ring railway that's going to assist Nairobi remove the jams will also be done in the next 2 to 3 years. In the money we have put money in the budget, sorry, we have put money to restructure the NHIF. And for your information, we believe inside between 2 and 3 years, we should be able to have a proper, well-functioning national insurance scheme that will provide universal health care for our citizens. It is untenable that 50 years after our independence, people still die of diseases that are treatable. And for your information, we want to change the board of NHIF. We want to reorganize the management of NHIF. We want to put all our public servants under that program. We want to put all the private sector, encourage the private sector to put their employees under the national health insurance scheme. And even those who cannot afford, we want to see how government is going to come in so that we put every citizen should be able to walk to a hospital, get treatment, and walk home without pay. Already we have started with the dispensaries and health centers. The 20, I don't know how many shillings citizens used to pay, we have scrapped. We want to upscale the facilities in healthcare. We've put money in the budget to turn around the energy sector. In the energy sector, we have 1,500, 1,600 megawatts of energy on our grid. That is appalling. Inside 48 months, we want to have another 5,000 megawatts on our grid. We want to triple, if not increase 4 times the amount of energy available to citizens on the grid. We want to make sure that energy that is currently retailing to citizens at 18 US cents will come down to 10 US cents per kilowatt hour. And let me be specific here. We've already put 12 billion shillings in the energy docket specifically for rural electrification. Because at the moment, 28% of households are connected to power. That tells you 72% of Kenya is in darkness. We have put 12 billion shillings. We have a program. Inside 2.5 years, we want to have every home that is near a transformer connected. And by so doing, we will bring another 65% of citizens onto the grid.
Right.
Apart from reducing the cost, apart from increasing supply, we want to reduce the cost and expand reach.
Right.
That way, we can drive this economy. We can power this economy because our industrialists, the private sector, when we met KEPSA the first time, they told us, gentlemen, if you don't do anything else, please reduce the cost of power from 18 US cents to 10. And I'm telling them in this program that we listened to them, we heard them, and we are on the way doing that. We are going to produce energy using coal, we are going to produce energy using gas, we are going to produce energy using geothermal, and we have a clear plan on how we are going to do that.
Okay, this is a commitment.
Aside from that,
yes, this is,
we are going to put 1 million acres. Already the expression of interest has been done. We've put money in the budget to begin the first phase of 1 million acres under irrigation to double the, especially the stable food, component, to make sure that no citizen, first we want to, Julie.
Food security.
Food security is a very critical component. When we say we want to bring down the cost of living, we mean every word of it. And we know how. And we've been on this road before.
Yes.
So what we have done, if you give me just half a minute. We have, if you looked at the papers about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we've already advertised for expression of interest. We have government 1.5 million acres. We want to put the first 1 million under government program acres under irrigation to produce maize, to produce wheat, to produce legumes, and to put some under dairy. We envisage that at the moment we produce 36, almost 38 million bags of maize, for example. We intend to produce another 20 million using irrigation, so that just by the rules of supply and demand, we will bring down the cost of basic food items, hopefully reduce the cost of living, and make sure that citizens, instead of spending most of their money buying food, they have extra money to buy other goods and services.
Let me come in here just because of time.
Yes,
I need to really address that. A lot of people, and absolutely industrialists will be jumping up and down to hear the plans on power. Food security is critical, and it could also play a role in providing jobs for young people. So these are critical areas. Health, all important. A lot of SMSs coming in, looking at the education situation. Now, somebody who headed that ministry, I remember you pushing for people to take more sciences and getting very involved, even at points coming, to blows with academics. So you're passionate about this. Students have been out of school for 3 weeks now, and lots of questions coming in. People are saying, no, the government has failed on education specifically. The government is unable to solve the teachers' strike. Today we were hoping that this strike might end. It hasn't. What next from the Jubilee government?
It's really unfortunate that the strike has continued for this long. We have been very clear, however, and we continue to urge the Kenya National Union of Teachers to stick to the issues, to leave the politics out of this, to leave the sideshows out of this. The issues that they raised were about 8. Employment of new additional teachers, paying of promotion of teachers, paying responsibility allowance, paying commuter allowance, paying special allowance. All those we have offered the maximum that was advised by SRC, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. The only issues that we haven't addressed is one, the issues of leave allowance and the issues of house allowance. Julie, every public servant earns the same as teachers on house allowance. Tell me, as a government, what justification will you have to increase salaries or house allowance for teachers and not for other public servants when they live in the same country, working for the same government, serving the same people? I mean, really, that is completely unreasonable. So, and we have told the teachers that is not possible, because if we have to review house allowance, it has to be done for all public servants, because everybody earns the same. We are serving the same people. We are in the same country. We live under the same conditions. If you are living in a house, so does civil servants in the same area. What
next now? Because it seems we have a stalemate. What next?
So the situation as it stands now is that NAT have said they've agreed to the deal. All they want is that they want us to pay everything today. We have a budget, and a budget has a process. We propose a budget as the executive. We don't spend money as we wish. Money has to be approved. Every cent has to be approved by Parliament and approved for specific expenditure. We have told teachers And for your information, we had negotiated with Kupet 3 years, 3 installments. This year, next July, and the July after. NAT came in and said, because you've already agreed with Kupet, how do we look good? Can you make it, instead of 3 installments, 2 installments? As government, we said, I mean, we want to move on. We will agree.
Did they say to you, how do we look good?
Yes.
How do we look effective?
Absolutely. How do we look effective? We said, fine, let's make it 2 installments. They proposed themselves that we make it 2 installments. And as government, we consulted and said, fine. I mean, since we have another time to run, to do the budget next year, we can adjust everything and make it available in the next budget. We are shocked that again, they have now gone back to the issues of house allowance. They have gone back to the issues of Gazette Notice 534.
So what next?
I mean,
what
so
now?
really,
what do you
so
see?
the way we have asked the ministry is concerned to consult. Government is going to take a position tomorrow. You know, we're going to take a position because it is now not possible for us to continue this circus, because what it is now is that kids must go back to school, yeah, and teachers must find it in their hearts to go back to school. Government is going to meet its part of the commitment. We have said we're going to pay teachers commuter allowance. That we will do beginning as soon as this whole process rolls into action. We're going to pay all the other allowances we have committed ourselves to, and we expect teachers to go back to class.
And that's, okay, now let's move on from that. We could stay with it. Everybody's watching, so many students out of school, serious concern to parents, students. Let's see what happens, but let's move on. It's the issue of costs of living for Kenyans. And of course, you know, just survival, your unga, the VAT, the issue, of course, huge criticism on that. There's security as well, and our time is running out. But I do want your take on those 2 issues, the survival of Kenyans on a daily basis, the cost of living, it's just too high, and security.
The way to manage the cost of living is exactly what we're doing. You have to bring down the basic needs of Kenyans, the basic expenditure. What do Kenyans spend their money? What is the first thing they buy? They buy food. And for your information, 40% of a budget of a citizen goes to food. We want to target the food component. That's why we've put money in irrigation. That's why we've put money in subsidizing farm inputs. That's why we are putting money in extension programs. That's why we are ensuring that the Ministry of Agriculture, which is now combined with livestock and all, has a clear program on how to expand food production. So we are putting money there, and for your information, our target is that we should be able to move the expenditure of citizens from 40% to 25%. That way, we can bring down the cost of living.
Okay.
Right?
Very quickly, security. And so
security,
what you're saying is it's the long-term plan rather than the short-term. There was uproar over the VAT issue.
The VAT bill. The VAT bill.
Yes.
Let me explain the VAT bill. Let me explain to citizens. 70% of citizens don't buy unga from the shelf. 70%. They go to the posho mill, you know, at home. Right. They sugar their meal and they go and have their ugali. Yeah. In many of the suburbs of Nairobi, that's what goes on. The only people who goes to the shelves to buy unga on the shelf at the supermarket is Julie and myself and a few. And these are people who basically can afford. What we are saying on VAT, and let me give you 2 examples. What we are saying is, but in any case, we have removed VAT on unga because it was taking a long time for us to explain. So we've removed VAT on unga, we've removed VAT on bread. But let me say this. The reason why we have VAT is because we want citizens who can afford to pay so that government has money to support infrastructure and support those who cannot afford. Let me give you an example. We have, in this year's budget, we have increased the number of citizens who get cash transfers from 150,000 to 300,000. These are people who are poor. These are old, the aged. These are people who are physically challenged. These are people we send money every month for them to be able to buy basic food items. It is our intention that if we raise sufficient money from Julie and myself through VAT, we can actually move the number of people who benefit from cash transfers from 300,000 to 1 million. That way, we capture the people in the slums, the people in rural areas, the poor guys, and we can even increase the money that is sent to these people so that they too can be able to buy food and live in a country like the rest of us. Let me ask you, Julie, why would government subsidize unga for William Ruto or Julie Kishuru? Surely.
It would, and we stop there on that issue.
Okay.
We stop on that issue. I would love to ask about security, but our time is absolutely...
Let me just say one thing about security.
Yes, it is important. And
we've contained security in many of the areas that we initially had issues. We had issues in Bungoma, we had issues in Kuria, we had issues in Tana River. We've brought that to manageable levels. We have issues in Mandera which are a bit complicated because it not only involves clan people, clan elders and clan wars, but it also involves clans that are living beyond our borders.
Indeed.
That is why we are saying we must sort out this refugee issue in our country. That's why we've spent a lot of time. We want to sort out Somalia. We want to get all the refugees back to their home because we have 1 million idle people sitting in places in our country. And idle people, they say an idle mind is a devil's workshop. We have sent to Parliament the bill on matters of security. We want security issues streamlined so that there is no conflict between the police commission and the police service. We have also put in this year's budget 67 billion Kenyan shillings. We want to buy an additional 1,200 cars for the police. We are targeting another 3,000 next year. We want to make sure our policemen are mobile. We are moving full speed with the police reforms. We want to make sure that our men and women in uniform know what their calling is. We give them the necessary instruments for them to deal with matter security so that citizens can go do business, children can go to school, and every citizen can do their bit.
Honestly, this topic of security deserves a show on its own, just to discuss this. And so I cannot do you justice or the nation by trying to handle it in this short time, but thank you for that. Final question for you. What do you say to people who say the deputy president is spending 100 million shillings doing up his house? Please, talk to Wananchi, please.
Okay.
Yes.
First, the deputy president's house has not been handed over to me. It is still under the custody of the Ministry of Infrastructure now and Transport, right? That is where the whole problem, the whole house is. The deputy president's house is not my property, it's government property. When the matter was brought to my attention, I called the permanent secretary and I asked him, when are we going, can I move to this house? He said, no, you can't move to this house because it's not complete. What is not complete? He says, the kitchen is not working, the laundry has not been fixed, the doors have problems, I don't know, this has and this. They wrote a long list of issues that were outstanding. I asked him, but government had already put in money to do all this. They said the contractor this, the contractor that. So the first thing I told him, before you do anything else, recover money from the contractor. If there are things that are faulty and government paid for, make sure you recover money from the contractor. They recovered 45 million from the contractor. And then they said for them to finish the house, they did another budget of 247 billion, 247 million, right? I told them, my friend, this house is going to cost how much? I asked them to bring me the list of the things they want to do. Or they want to put up a fence and a security fence that will cost 36 million. I told them, my friends, we don't need a security fence. We have enough security guys there. They're about 6, 7. Those ones are enough. Just put an electric fence, it is enough. So just wait.
Yes.
So that was removed. So the whole of that budget, wait. The whole of that budget came down to 75 million from 200 and 47 million. It came down to 75 million. They tried to say, oh, let's put bulletproof windows, because there are bulletproof windows in the office of the president, and there are bulletproof windows in the former prime minister's office. I told them we don't need bulletproof windows.
How much now additional do we spend?
So the money now that I saw, the final account that I saw is 75 million, out of which 45 was recovered from the former contractor.
So you're saying the balance now is 30 million? And the deputy president moves in?
And they tell me that it will take another 5 months for that to happen. So let me say this. I'm a very careful person, right? And I am very clear about what public expenditure is. And when I looked through that budget, I told them, this is not going to happen, not at least when I'm the deputy president and when I'm going to move to that house.
Right.
If this is how much it's going to cost, I can stay in my house where I have been living.
Which is just a few kilometers away. Let's go to the final question, and this being the final question, I wanted to inform and possibly even inspire Kenyans. What can Kenyans expect 4.5 years down the line? What is possible? What is achievable? What is the picture and the vision that the Jubilee government has? What promises are you making? Paint a picture of Kenya before the next election.
4.5 years down the road, God willing, this economy will be growing by 10%. That's our target.
Double digits.
Double digits. And to be able to get there, we have assembled a huge program. We are looking at new ways of raising revenue without disturbing the local market. We're going to look at possibility of a sovereign bond to raise money that is going to be 2 to 3%, so that we can now allow the private sector to borrow locally. We're going to invest in 4.5 years down the road, the railway line will be complete. With the railway line alone, we can be able to add between 1.5% and 2% to our GDP. We intend to do the Lamu corridor, port, pipeline, and railway. 4.5 years down the road, we hope and we believe that our program that we have already rolled out to access credit to young men and women, we already have put in the budget 6 billion this year. We intend to continue that program and make sure that more and more young people have access to credit. 4.5 years down the road, we pledge to the country that we will increase the number of mid-level colleges so that we can impart skills and competencies to young people so that they can effectively contribute their talent, their knowledge, their expertise in driving our economy. We are already discussing with development partners, and hopefully by the end of this year we will raise another 30 billion shillings to be able to do at least an institute of technology in every constituency in Kenya. This year, we've already put money in the budget to put at least an institute of technology in every county. We want to move that inside 4.5 years to 290 institutes of technology that young people in the rural areas, for them to be able to effectively participate in driving the economy, to go to a college, acquire competencies, acquire technology, acquire skills to be able to effectively participate.
Thank you.
4.5 years down the road, Julie, we want to look at a Kenya that is transformed. And we are very clear about where we want to take this country. And 4.5 years down the road, we want citizens to walk to a health facility, get treatment, and walk back home without paying a coin.
A Kenya that is transformed. I think that captures it. And we end it there. Thank you so much for joining us. My directors have been screaming in my ear for about 10 minutes. We need to wind up, but we think, you know, in all honesty, the country needs to hear, to be able to evaluate and also hold accountable the government that they have in place. So thank you for coming and for setting this out for the country. I need to also inform you that we've had a record number of SMSs. We've had thousands and thousands, and each of those, actually not thousands, we normally have thousands and thousands, we've gone well beyond. What we will do is compile those SMSs and provide them to your office, so that you can see what Kenyans have said. So if you've sent an SMS about the Jubilee government, it's going to get to their office and they can see what you have to say about their performance. Now next week, right here on Sunday Live, we are going to host Raila Odinga, who has just arrived in Kenya today from Australia, and we'll see what he has to say about 100 years of the Jubilee government.
100 days.
100 days, excuse me, and get his take on that. As you can see, we are having to hold some of our regular segments. Who Owns Kenya will be back in a few weeks as we host some amazing interviews here in studio on Sunday Live. Asante sana.
Thank you very much
for being with us.
Sana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're taking a break. Stay with Sunday Live. Much more on the way.